Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Reactions are rolling in following the first presidential debate of the season. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. President Biden and former President Trump went head-to-head on a wide range of issues. But as Julia Benbrook reports, most of the focus is on the candidate's performance.
While Trump went on the offensive and steamrolled through multiple lines, often reciting falsehoods, it's Biden's performance that's receiving the most attention. There were moments where he struggled to articulate a thought, leaving some Democrats questioning if he should be the nominee and others rushing to defend him. It's the first time a sitting president and a former president have debated.
The whole world is blowing up under him.
Never heard so much malarkey in my whole life.
President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump sparred over the economy, immigration, foreign policy, and more. But Biden missed several opportunities to fact-check Trump and counter him on issues like abortion, where Democrats have an edge among voters. Republicans now looking to capitalize on Biden's shaky moments.
President Biden is not up to the job.
According to a CNN flash poll, 67% of debate watchers said Trump had a better performance. Some Democratic officials are privately expressing concerns.
I think there's a lot of people who are going to want to see him consider taking a different course now. We're still far from our convention.
But top Democrats have jumped to the president's defense.
I will never turn my back on President Biden. We're going to double down in the next few months. We're going to win this election.
While Vice President Kamala Harris admitted that Biden got off to a, quote, slow start, she urged voters to look at what the administration has accomplished.
I'm not going to spend all night with you talking about the last 90 minutes when I've been watching the last 3.5 years of performance.
These two are set to meet again on the debate stage. Before Thursday's debate, Biden and Trump had already agreed to a second one on September 10th, hosted by ABC. The party conventions take place before that. That's when the party nominees become official. The Republican National Convention is in July and the Democratic National Convention in August. Reporting in Atlanta, I'm Julia Benbrook.
The Supreme Court will answer the question of whether former President Trump is immune from criminal prosecution on Monday. Today, Chief Justice John Roberts announced that will be the final day of opinions from the current term. There are as many as 4 opinions outstanding, including the Trump immunity case.
Our marine layer is starting to erode on us pretty quickly through the morning hours, but it does come back tonight. And it's going to erode fairly quickly through the upcoming days. We'll be talking about a warmer trend in the week ahead. I'll have the full forecast.
Chula Vista is one of the fastest growing parts of the county. The city has gained almost 100,000 people over the last 2 decades as it's sprawled outwards to the east. But that kind of growth and development can come with big wildfire risks. And KPBS South Bay reporter Corey Suzuki says the city may not be doing enough to manage them.
Juan Escorcia takes every chance he can get to talk up Chula Vista.
And it's one of those communities where you come, you park, you stay, and you grow a family, and that's just like you're forever happy.
That's part of the deal for Escorcia. He works as a real estate agent in Chula Vista, working with young families and other potential buyers. His whole job is to make people feel at home in the city. It's more than just work, though. Escorcia and his family also live here. Escorcia likes the feel of the new homes and parks and shopping centers in East Chula Vista. He and his wife are both runners, and they love the trails and canyons. But at the same time, Escorcia says there's always a little worry at the back of his mind. The question of how much risk there is here, of a wildfire.
There's a lot of valleys, there's a lot of open space as well, and if not controlled, then it could be a disaster.
It's true. As Chula Vista continues to grow eastward, the threat of a major wildfire here is also growing. Last year, the city updated one of its emergency planning documents called a multi-jurisdictional hazard plan. It says thousands of homes could ignite during the next wildfire and blames the city for not doing enough to manage the growth of wild vegetation. According to the plan, the biggest danger comes from the dozens of canyons that carve through the eastern side of the city.
We have several areas of the city that we're not able to reach annually.
Marlon King is the city's emergency services manager and helped write the city's hazard plan. Inside those areas, he says, grasses and shrubs have grown wild, building up layers of dry branches.
Over 30 open space areas and a limited budget and a limited amount of staff within our divisions. You can't get to all of these areas. Some areas have grown for 30 plus years.
Some of those canyons are also right next to older, more vulnerable homes. Plants there can grow much closer to buildings, and the structures themselves are less resistant to heat and embers. If a fire started in one of those ravines, it could race up the walls and jump from canyon to canyon. Chula Vista Fire Chief Harry Munns says this has all happened because the city hasn't set aside enough money to properly manage the canyons.
As much as wildfire is a distinct risk to the community, there are other things that become more of a priority to the community and the public.
City leaders in Chula Vista have taken some decisive steps to get ahead of the next wildfire. One of those is the fire department's new fuels crew, a special crack team of firefighters armed with chainsaws, weed whackers, and other heavy-duty tools. Their goal is to clear out some of the most overgrown canyons. The program launched just last year, and it's managed to significantly clear out 3 of the most dangerous canyons so far. The department is also trying to bring back the city's Fire Safe Council, a local volunteer group that focuses on spreading information about fire risk and safety, part of a county-wide network. Chula Vista used to have one, but it went dormant during the pandemic and hasn't come back since then. Still, overall, officials say not much has changed since the city updated its hazard plan last October. Wildfire researcher Luca Carmignani says Chula Vista is far from alone. Many cities are also dealing with these same issues.
We always rely on firefighters for everything. And, we just have this feeling that if something happens, the firefighters will just be there, to protect all of us. Unfortunately, the last few decades, especially the last couple of decades, have shown how this is not the case.
Carmignani says it's equally important for residents to join community groups like the Chula Vista Fire Safe Council and do what they can to reinforce their homes.
At the end of the day, we are the city of Chula Vista. We are the ones living here.
Escorcia, the real estate agent, has been thinking about this a lot. He talks about fire safety not just with potential home buyers, but at his church and with neighbors.
You have to come out and, share your voice.
And Escorcia is proud to live in Chula Vista. He says he's confident in the capabilities of the city and the fire department to protect them. Still, Escorcia also says he and his family aren't sure yet what the future holds.
We don't know. We don't know where that will take us, where that will lead us, but definitely Chula Vista is what we call home now.
In Chula Vista, Corey Suzuki, KPBS News.
San Diego leaders are divided over a Supreme Court ruling on homelessness. The justices ruled that cities can punish people for camping on public property, even if they have nowhere else to go. KPBS reporter Katie Anastas says while some are praising the decision, others say it criminalizes homelessness.
The Supreme Court sided with the city of Grants Pass, Oregon in a 6-3 vote. That city prohibits people from using bedding while sleeping in public spaces, including parks, parking lots, and sidewalks, even if there isn't adequate shelter available.
Grants Pass ruling opens a lot of doors to cities across the West Coast, and it could open doors for the city of San Diego if we wanted stricter regulations. I think the regulations that we have in place now have begun to be effective, and I think that we should continue on with those.
The city of San Diego approved a public camping ban last June. The unsafe camping ordinance prohibits tent encampments in public spaces if shelter beds are available. And regardless of shelter availability, people can't camp near shelters, K-12 schools, and waterways. Whitburn says it's working. The Downtown San Diego Partnership reported a 60% drop in its count of unsheltered people between May and December of last year.
We have seen a significant reduction in the number of people living on the streets, particularly downtown. And a significant part of the reason why is because people understand that that is the law, and they're taking advantage of shelter opportunities that are available to them.
But homeless service providers like Paul Downey, CEO of Serving Seniors, say many people are moving away from downtown, not necessarily into shelters.
The fact is that we're not actually solving anything with the encampment ban. If you look at the demographics, we've simply shifted people from downtown to the neighboring communities. And so all you have to do is look and see where people are. We've just reshuffled the deck.
The 2024 point-in-time count reported 3,489 unsheltered people in the city of San Diego, up by 6% from the year before. Other communities saw much larger increases, including a 47% increase in La Mesa, 58% in Chula Vista, and 85% in Lemon Grove. At the time, 87% of the city's emergency shelter beds were full. The number of sheltered homeless people within the city went up by 2% between the 2023 and 2024 point-in-time counts. San Diego City Council President Sean Elo Rivera voted against the unsafe camping ordinance last year. In a statement, he said he was disappointed in the Supreme Court's ruling, but that it, quote, doesn't change our ability to focus on building affordable housing, preventing San Diegans from falling into homelessness with rental assistance, and providing human-centered shelter with services, end quote. Mayor Todd Gloria has requested a public city council hearing on his proposal for a 1,000-bed shelter. Katie Anastas, KPBS News.
2 former school law enforcement officers have been indicted over the failed police response to a school shooting in Uvalde, Texas. And as Laura Aguirre reports, families of the victims are coping with mixed emotions 2 years after the tragedy.
We're all happy that at least 2 officers were indicted.
Jesse Rizzo lost his niece when she, along with 18 classmates and 2 teachers, were killed at Robb Elementary in Uvalde, Texas. On Thursday, former Uvalde School District Police Chief Pete Arredondo and former school police officer Adrian Gonzalez became the first 2 officers indicted for their roles in the botched law enforcement response that day in May of 2022.
They have to accept the fact that they failed on it. And whatever consequences they're faced with, they must accept them.
Arredondo is seen as the on-site commander of more than 370 law enforcement officers who waited 77 minutes to confront and kill the 18-year-old gunman, according to a damning Justice Department report released in January. The DOJ outlined many missed opportunities by police to stop the bloodshed sooner, such as hearing bursts of gunfire, getting reports that a teacher had been shot, and receiving a desperate call from a student trapped alive with the shooter. Texas authorities confirmed that Arredondo turned himself in Thursday. He was booked on 10 counts of child endangerment and known criminal negligence, according to jail records, before being released on bond. Both he and Gonzalez face felony charges of abandoning and endangering a child, Uvalde's district attorney told local media there. Rizzo says the indictments bring some peace, but more needs to be done.
In order to bring closure, you would want all the officers that failed to respond appropriately. You would want them to be held accountable in an equal way.
I'm Laura Aguirre for KPBS News.
The nonprofit group Everytown for Gun Safety is reporting at least 86 unintentional shootings by children in the U.S. this year. Mandy Gaither has what parents need to know about gun safety.
It can happen in an instant. Little hands on a gun can have deadly consequences.
But because it's a leading cause of death in children, there are many things that parents are not aware of that they can do to prevent their child from being injured or killed by a firearm.
Emergency medicine Dr. Keisha Frazier-Doe with Children's Healthcare of Atlanta says a key to prevention is properly storing a firearm. Remember 3 simple things. Keep guns unloaded, locked, and stored separately from ammunition.
There is a 70% reduction in injury if you have your gun stored locked up. So you can keep your family safe by just keeping it locked up.
Since unintentional shootings can happen anywhere, Frazier-Doe says every parent should ask about guns before allowing their child to go to another home.
Say, hey, how do you store your firearms? Or do you have an unsecured firearm in your home? Or do you keep your guns locked up in your home? And just have it in the flow of your conversation that you would normally have with families.
Other tips: come up with comfortable wording for you. Keep it in your notes on your phone and text the questions. Frazier-Doe says you can also place blame either on the impulsiveness or curiosity of your child or on a pediatrician who suggests you ask these questions.
All of these are ways that you can ask without having to be nervous or concerned about the combativeness of it.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Veterans Affairs and MTS are partnering in San Diego to help veterans in the homeless community connect with services. KPBS military and veterans reporter Andrew Dyer has more.
Representatives from the VA, MTS, and several community groups at the Old Town Transit Center Friday are helping veterans connect to services. It's the first of several planned events in a new partnership between MTS and the VA. Janice McDonald is a clinical social worker with the VA's Homeless Outreach Program. She says the partnership just makes a lot of sense.
They have a big homeless outreach program too, and they're looking for providers, and we just thought it would be a perfect union. You know, you have the trolley right here, they get off, they walk 15 feet, and they have medical care.
Since January, the VA has used its new medical mobile unit van to bring care and services to veterans out in the community. Veterans can enroll in VA medical care, apply for benefits, as well as connect to housing services. McDonald says unhoused veterans sometimes have difficulty with the VA.
That's why we're coming to them. We're making it as easy as possible for them to get the assistance and get engaged with us.
Miguel Gonzalez oversees the homeless outreach team at MTS. He says they're trying to get the message out to people in the homeless community that MTS can also provide assistance, and not just to veterans.
So what we like to do is provide the warm handoff. So if we meet an individual that needs assistance, whether it's for VA or maybe they're not veterans, we want to be able to contact that outreach resource and provide them a good connection so they can get that help.
Other services from community groups, such as legal assistance and COVID vaccinations, will also be part of the partnership.
We try to bring as much resources as possible. Having the VA work with us is amazing because all of us want to work together. We all have the same goal here, is to help out the community.
The VA and MTS are bringing these services to 3 stations on a rotating basis through October. In addition to Old Town, they'll also visit the El Cajon Trolley Station and the Palomar Station in Chula Vista. Andrew Dyer, KPBS News.
A COVID-19 surge is here, and the CDC recommends Americans get updated shots this fall. For weeks, cases have been rising in at least 38 states, particularly in the West and South. Hospitalizations and deaths are also ticking up. The CDC says 2 new variants account for more than half of U.S. infections. The new vaccines will be based on these latest strains. Anyone 6 months or older is encouraged to get vaccinated. The way we sleep may be known to us, but a study from UC San Diego has identified several categories of sleep that you're likely not aware of. And as KPBS SciTech reporter Thomas Fudge explains, they could be a way to predict disease.
Sleep is something most people love and love to complain about not getting enough of. But researchers say our periodic observations about what kind of sleep we get don't show an accurate picture. Scientists at UC San Diego analyzed 5 million nights of sleep from more than 30,000 people. They identified 5 main types of sleep and several more subtypes.
So this idea that we could look at sleep across tens of thousands of people living their normal lives was a really unique opportunity.
UCSD professor Ben Smar was one of the authors of the study's resulting paper. The voluminous data they gathered came from people who wore Oura rings, which record body heat, activity, and pulse, all the things that indicate how you slept at night. And what kinds of sleep did researchers cop from the data?
There's some people for every night of the week, it's just one big block of sleep and it looks great. There's some people for maybe 1 or 2 nights. There's a couple of shorter bouts, but otherwise they're mostly longer, nice bouts. There's some people for whom every night is kind of broken up a little bit.
The 33,000 people in the study slept pretty good. The big purple blob shows people who slept through the night, waking up only for a few minutes, if that. The smaller islands show varieties of disrupted sleep, defined as waking up for at least an hour. But the health consequences aren't shown by what sleep island you live on, but how and when you move from one to the other. One link they made to health problems came in people who had diabetes.
If someone has really disrupted sleep, that gives us some level of information that they might be diabetic.
But Varun Vishwanath, the lead author of the paper, like Smar, said it mattered much more how those people move from one sleep island to the other over time. He says he hopes this study will help people be healthier.
I think the next step is going to be using this kind of landscape and this kind of information to give people a bit more agency over their own decisions day to day.
He adds that the people who wore the Oura ring and were in the study did it to help advance science, and he'd like to thank them. Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.
The sun is out this weekend, and there's a lot to do in San Diego, including a special celebration at Balboa Park. KPBS's Matthew Bowler gives us a preview.
It's quiet now, but come Sunday, the House of Mexico is going to transform the lawn at the International Houses into a fiesta. The House of Mexico is celebrating its 20th anniversary. Southwestern College's internationally known Mariachi Garibaldi will perform with baile folklorico dancers and even a Latin jazz group called the Besos Jazz Trio. The House of Mexico was one of the original countries represented at Balboa Park's House of Pacific Relations International Cottages in 1936.
It was active for about 6 years, and then on reasons unknown, it disappeared.
Secretary for the board of the House of Mexico, Amelia Ruelas, says over the years, the house came and went until
20 years ago, a group of community members, they formed a nonprofit. They submitted the application to the House of Pacific Relations, and we were voted back in by one vote, I might add. We only won by one vote.
Ruelas says the volunteer-run House of Mexico has been going strong ever since. The cottage is directly across the street from the Organ Pavilion in Balboa Park, but the fiesta is going to be on the lawn just west of the House of Mexico.
It's a big party with music, and we end with a DJ, so bring your dance shoes.
The family-friendly event is free Sunday from 11:30 till 4:30. There will be food for sale, but you can always bring your own snacks. Matthew Bowler, KPBS News.
Our story for the upcoming days is about the warming trend. Into next week, we will find a lot of those numbers getting a little bit higher. The concern will be across the deserts, really, because it gets hot for the desert communities, and our marine layer has notably lessened. You probably already started to notice that through the morning hours, but it's certainly of concern. Excessive heat watch in place for some of our desert communities here, so we do have that concern. The heat, we know, is going to be a factor as we go into the start of July. And if you look tonight, we still get the marine layer, which keeps the coastal communities a bit more comfortable. 64 for the city as your low, 61 in Chula Vista. Head to Borrego Springs. We're in the mid-70s here. Mount Laguna holding on to the mid-60s. High pressure still in control for us as we head through tomorrow, which keeps the southwest warm and dry. Really no sign of relief. We've even limited a lot of that moisture through the four corners, so there's not nearly as much in the way of shower and thunderstorm activity. As we look through tomorrow, it's 75 the high. Again, morning marine layer will still be out there, but it's getting a little bit slimmer at this time of year as we expect. Oceanside 79 for you. Ramona coming in at 94. So the number is really taking off. Borrego Springs well into the 110 range. And there's going to be a lot more of that to come. Once we get beyond the 5-day, that's when the numbers will really go up. So just keep that in mind as we move towards the holiday itself, because this high pressure system is strengthening. And it means a lot more triple digits for desert communities, especially. Coastal communities, the next 5 days, again, we're looking pretty good, pretty seasonable here, 70s to lower 80s for our temperatures. If you're in the inland areas, we're getting close to 90 degrees for a high on Sunday, and same thing for Monday, but overall not too bad for us. Mountain communities, just watch out on some of those breezy days like Sunday. Fire risk can be a bit more elevated. Overall, though, we'll hang out in the 70s for the week to come. Like I said, though, beyond the 5-day, especially for the desert communities, that's when that heat will really settle in. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Melissa Constancer.
Get ready for all-out pandemonium in San Diego. 2 giant pandas from China have arrived at the San Diego Zoo, and this video is of the long overseas journey for Yunchuan and Jingbao. They are the first pandas to enter the U.S. in more than 20 years. It's all thanks to a decades-long partnership with China to further panda conservation efforts. The San Diego Zoo says it has fully renovated its panda habitat for the new residents.
Our giant panda habitat has gone through an absolute transformation. The size of the habitat is, I believe it's quadrupled, maybe even quintupled. It's enormous. So there's a lot of vertical structures and a hillside and many things that harken back to the mountains of Sichuan.
And the San Diego Zoo officials say the public won't be able to see the pandas for several weeks as the pair get acclimated to their new home. And when the pandas are ready, they'll have no shortage of visitors. SDSU's Mir Kopik explains their unique draw in the Friday Business Report.
Well, the pandas first came in 1987 for a tour of about 200 days to the San Diego Zoo, and that was a sensation. It generated over 2 million incremental visitors. Now, we haven't had a panda here for the last 5 years, and these are the first 2 pandas that are coming to the United States new in the last 21 years, and the San Diego Zoo is the beneficiary. And right now, all the other zoos that did have pandas have returned them, except for the Atlanta Zoo, which has 2 pandas, and they'll go back later in the year. You know, we have a tourist economy of almost $24 billion in revenues. 31 million tourists came to San Diego last year. Pandas have fans nationally. So there is going to be a lot of people who maybe have never considered coming to San Diego. They're going to come to the zoo. And certainly San Diego as a city is going to benefit from them staying a handful of days and enjoying our other attractions and amenities that the city now offers tourists and giving them a diverse experience when they visit San Diego.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.